Hello, Ryan here, aka Mac, and welcome. There was a lot of very interesting features that came to an end in the month of December, so let us check them out. As always, a huge thank you to all of my patrons and channel members, in particular to my latest channel members Philip Sparrow, Raygun972 and Shooter, and to Iceny Magni for the support over on Patreon as well. It is all very much appreciated, and thank you so much for the support. So each month I like to put together a video that takes a look at all of the work that is kicking off as well as finishing, just to keep us all more informed as to what work is going on in the background. Now, before we get to it, just because a feature on the progress tracker has work beginning or completing in a particular month does not necessarily mean that it will be released that quarter, the next quarter, or even in that year, as there could still be more work required from other teams like the downstream teams, audio, visual effects, and so on. Or even priorities can shift and it can get pushed back until it's needed. It is, however, a good guide to see what could potentially come to the persistent universe when, but at the very least, it shows us what work is being done at what time in the year. So with that said, let us take a look at all of the deliverables and features that had work ending in the month of December. Now, the first feature is called Additional Derelict Settlements. Now, I presume this is referring to the new settlements in Alpha 3.22, however, the deliverable is not tagged as such like they usually are. And even though I'm pretty certain this is relating to these new settlements, it is worth pointing out that the work done on getting the Rastar tool to the current standard is very important, as over time we will see more and more settlements and other points of interest populate the planets as they continue to build the game. And this is just the beginning for getting a much more diverse population of NPCs spread throughout the Stanton system and beyond, giving a much greater sense of this living, breathing universe that Cloud Imperium are looking for. Now, this had 50 weeks work that began back at the start of January 2023 and looks to have completed mid-December. Now, the next feature is one that I am very excited to learn more about and quite surprised we haven't yet, so they must clearly be keeping it a little under wraps, but this is Bounty Hunting version 2. Now, this is quite the undertaking and required 100 weeks work from 7 different teams, and bounty hunting in StarCitizen is to be like any other career path. It is to be detailed, a lot of depth, make it skill-based, and offer a lot of variety for both PvP and PvE bounties. Now, this will basically enable players to track their bounties via a mobiGlas security app, which is all linked to distress beacons, comm arrays, air traffic controllers, cameras, and NPC informants, and heavily relies on other back-end systems like the virtual AI and NPC scheduler. Oh, and the security service as well. Basically, Cloud Imperium want bounty hunting to be this large cat and mouse system in which the bounty is trying to keep one step ahead of the hunter, covering up their tracks, while the bounty hunter is using all these different systems and tools to track and hunt the bounty, capturing them alive if possible, and then delivering them to places like the security admin office that we saw a little while ago for processing. Now, this is going to be a huge mechanic that Cloud Imperium have been keeping relatively hush-hush about since we last saw the security offices. I cannot wait to see the reveal of this career path. They are clearly wanting to push it to a pretty decent standard, have it quite fleshed out before they reveal it, but soon those days of grinding those bounty hunting missions super easily and super quickly for payment will be gone, and you will need to really think about the job at hand, get prepared, and hopefully execute it the way that you intended it. Cannot wait. Now, the next deliverable is simply called Bug Fixing and Tech Debt, and this relates to general bug fixing and optimizations for all game features and back-end tech. And it is definitely a very important update, and we have been seeing significant progress in this manner since, I suppose, 3.20, where they have been heavily focused on quality of life, stability, performance, and cleaning up many of those long-standing bugs and issues. Now, this has been a studio-wide job, with 41 teams working to resolve their own issues within their purview, just to make the game a lot more solid, and if 3.22 is anything to go by, they have made a lot of great progress. Now, we did hear that this will be an ongoing thing for the foreseeable, so they can properly maintain the game and keep it in a good state, and I am sure that I am not alone when I say that this is absolutely appreciated. Now next up we have a personal favourite, which is called Building Interiors. Now this will provide a lot of content from localised missions around cities, interesting points of interest for looting missions and activities, but also player housing. Now the scope for what Cloud Imperium want to achieve with the Building Interior mandate is to utilise many interior spaces of the buildings that are within the major cities of the verse and open them up for gameplay. Now this is not to say that every building will have an interior, but seeing the range of concept art shown off on Inside Star Citizen this year, I think it was, maybe last year, really goes to show how much variety they are wanting to achieve for their interiors. Now the most interesting one for me are the player homes, as these will be offering many different types of accommodation for players to buy within cities, like apartments, giving players a true home to live in. Now last we heard, this mandate, the Building Interior mandate, was put on hold. I think it was because the team were working on pushing the new underground facilities, or the distribution centres, but it has been picked up since, so this is likely going to push back the work that we see on the progress tracker going into the new year. But I personally think it is highly likely that along with the persistent hangars, that player apartments and homes will come along either around the same time or shortly afterwards. Now this had about 148 weeks work from 3 different teams. That says it completed in mid-December according to the progress tracker, so hopefully they're not too far off. Now talking of persistent hangars, this is next on my list, which also came to an end in December, and what we saw at CitizenCon really showed off how far they have come with this important system. Now, we know that persistent hangars and freight elevators are scheduled to release in the first half of next year, which will certainly change how we all play Star Citizen, offering a place to call home, place to store our items, decorate it how we please, and also allow for the larger cargo update to come along as well. Now, this was again a big undertaking that lasted 136 weeks from just 2 different teams, being the NAPU and USPU teams, or the North America and US Persistent Universe teams. That hopefully was closed off in mid-December, as a Q1 release of both of these would be a big win. Might be Q2, fingers crossed for Q1, but Cloud Imperium also stated that when it comes to hangars, we will have the option of instanced for if we're just doing a delivery mission, loading and unloading, as well as physicalized hangars that are in the game world and can be bought and owned by players. So here's hoping that we get both options upon release, as that would be huge. So I suppose leading on from persistent hangars, freight elevators are next. Now I won't spend too much time on these two because I know I've spoken about them a lot, other content creators will have, so you're probably sick of hearing about them, but freight elevators will completely change how we get our ships, get them set up for missions, deal with all of our items and our inventory and our vehicles and cargo. And as mentioned, the elevators and hangar update will be an absolute game changer, and I cannot wait to be living in my own hangar, spending time, as much time as I want, fixing up my ships, getting them ready for a mission, and using hopefully one of those little hover trolleys to move the cargo around. Now, freight elevators had 64 weeks work from 5 different teams, ending again mid-December. Now, next up, we have the new underground facilities, or the distribution centres, as they have now become known. Now, these are huge locations designed to handle large amounts of cargo, and I suspect heavily involved in the upcoming cargo updates to expand the mechanic in a big way. They will also likely offer a lot of hauling missions of all scales, from smaller boxes to large consignments, ranging in payout and reputation gains. Now, it was also mentioned that as players build reputation with these locations, they can gain access to deeper areas of the facility inside, which in turn could be beneficial if you and a group of friends plan to knock one off. Having someone on the inside who can give you easy access would be a great win. Plus, we know there are raids coming with these locations, offering lucrative jobs or quite dangerous jobs for groups of players to steal cargo from. Now, I'm pretty sure that there is a lot more to learn about these locations, and I think even just seeing them dotted around the landscape would be quite a sight, as they are huge, and they go deep into the ground. It was also said that these large distribution centres will come along in the first half of 2024, and after 142 weeks work from 4 different teams, it looks like they might just be about ready. So, there is a new mission type that completed work towards the end of December called Steal or Recover Cargo. Now, this will see players recovering or stealing cargo from both derelict and active ships and then hauling the cargo to its intended destination. Now this will be a nice addition, as it offers work for both criminals and non-criminals, but we don't really know too much about what this mission will involve or how it interconnects to other jobs and things going on. It could simply tie into the current derelicts that we have now, but offer a range of properly sized standard cargo unit containers, requiring players to load and unload their cargo, and it could see both legal and illegal missions, sending players to the same derelicts to fight over the cargo, or tie into the upcoming cargo missions, which will give pirates maybe a job of attacking haulers moving goods, or players attacking pirates to recover stolen cargo. Now chances are at some point it'll involve all the above, as the potential scope for these types of missions are quite big, utilising all the other game systems to grant the variation that we all require. Either way, it is nice to see more mission types making their way into the verse to expand on the available content, and this mission had 26 weeks work from 2 different teams that ended in December. Now one deliverable that had work going on up until mid-December, however, was initially released with Alpha 3.19, was the new player experience. Now this involved setting up the various landing zones, so far just Area 18 on ArcCorp and New Babbage on Microtech, to be far more accommodating to new players, with better signage, conveniences, and somewhat holding the new players' hands for the first 30 minutes of gameplay to help them get to grips. Now, although there are only 2 locations set up for this, the work that the 10 different teams are doing is all going into a modular system that will help to introduce the changes to all landing zones currently in Stanton and other locations much quicker. So a great important set of updates that is only going to become more and more vital as more players come to the game. And this had 77 weeks work that completed early in December. Now next we have the Origin G12, which is Origin's upcoming wheeled vehicle, and this comes in 3 different variants. I think there's a touring, a racing, and I can't remember the last one. Was it an AA? I should look it up. Yes, after looking it up, it is a militarized patrol vehicle. Now these are likely coming in Q1 of next year, as their work completed midway through December from the EU vehicle content team, so I suspect there is still a little work left to do from the downstream teams, but they will be a nice new addition to the ground vehicles and wheeled vehicle lineup, and I'm definitely happy to see more racing ground vehicles coming in, as I think that's going to be a lot of fun when that mechanic expands. So the next feature is called Outpost, Homestead, Independent and Outlaw. Now this one says, a small home for AI to live and shelter. They consist of a central hub and a few optional internal and external modules, providing the basic necessities to support a small group of people for an indefinite amount of time. So these, I believe, are referring to the locations in Pyro that we saw, with the various smaller points of interest and different types of themes like independent residents and outlaw sort of gang hideouts. And as we have heard, Cloud Imperium do intend on expanding these types of locations to Stanton as well, and along with every other location and point of interest we have now and coming in, the worlds are really starting to flesh out with more places to see. Now the new homesteads had 156 weeks work from 7 different teams that came to completion around mid-December. Now the next one is one major milestone which had work completing in December, and this was the resource management system. Now this is a very large feature, so there is a big potential that there is still a lot left to do, but equally if the main bulk of getting this system working is done, then that is a big win. Now during CitizenCon we saw a detailed UI system of this working, showing how someone can monitor, interact, and instruct others to manage the various resources on their ships, like opening doors, fixing components, and just seeing the general state of everything on board. This will be a very big system as it makes its way in, impacting everyone in various ways, and I do suspect chances are early next year we will hopefully see a gameplay demo in the experimental mode for Arena Commander of this resource management system, so players can test it, provide feedback, and Cloud Imperium can just polish it as they need to. Now the resource management system had 154 weeks work from 6 different teams, and I really look forward to seeing it get applied to not just ships, but stations and, more importantly now, planet-side locations like the settlements, being able to kill power and assault them in a tactical way. So a great system to see coming along, and it'll be interesting to get another update from the team. Now the next few deliverables that had work finishing in December are all ships. Firstly, we have the RSI Apollo, a dedicated multi-crew medical ship offering 2 variants, being the Medivac and Triage, but we don't know whether it's one coming first or whether it's both. The great news, I suppose, is that this ship had work completed in December by the US Vehicle Content team, so hopefully we will see this come along early next year, and maybe even with the ability to swap out different medical bed choices, as now that they have addressed and fixed the issue holding up ship modularity, I suspect the only prerequisite to bring this to the player's hands will be things like the freight elevators and personal hangars. Now, the Apollo work only had 12 weeks work from the US Vehicle Content team, so it does sound like there's still quite a bit left to do from the downstream teams, but I don't think we will be waiting too long before we see this come to the persistent universe. Hopefully the first half of 2024. Now, another ship that had work end in mid-December was the RSI Polaris. Now, this work was from the EU Vehicle Content team, so again, downstream will still need to get their hands on this, but it is looking very promising for the Polaris to come around Q2, Q3 next year, with the teams then moving straight onto the RSI Galaxy. There is a lot of people patiently waiting on the Polaris, and I think it is going to be a bit of a beast when it does arrive. I don't own one myself, but I will certainly enjoy crewing one. And then the final ship in the list is the RSI Zeus Mark II. Now, we know we won't be seeing this ship come along until late in 2024, around CitizenCon next year, but what is great about this is it was the Montreal Vehicle Content team who worked on this initially, as it shows that this team in Canada are really progressing well and getting into the swing of things. So having these additional resources in Montreal for the ship teams will definitely help with that backlog. Now, the last deliverable to end in December is Squadron 42 related, and it simply says Squadron 42 polishing. Now, this only had 14 weeks work from 5 different teams. I suspect there is a lot more work to go in terms of polishing, and if not, they will then move on to optimizations. But we know that Squadron 42, being the single-player campaign, is feature complete, and all that remains is the polishing and optimizations. So it is very interesting that this work completed in December. However, as I say, I can imagine it only required 14 weeks work, and I suspect that when the roadmap gets updated again in the new year, the polishing will be extended for however long it needs to be. But one thing is for sure, it is very exciting to know that Squadron 42 is getting much closer to releasing, and I am really looking forward to getting stuck into it. So there you go. That was all of the features and deliverables that had work finishing in December according to the progress tracker. Of course, when the roadmap is updated again into the new year, there may be some of these things extended, which I will address in next year's round of videos, but there are some real gems in this list, and next year is going to be a great one to see much of this roll out. Many of the features that I spoke about today have already been confirmed to be a first half of 2024 release, so there is a lot of great continued progress happening in all areas of Star Citizen, and the game that we are playing today is certainly not going to be the same game that we are playing by Q2 next year. But with that said, if you do enjoy my videos, please do consider subscribing and helping the channel to grow. Also, I will be live later today, hopefully I've got this video out in time, over at twitch.tv/SuperMacBrother. You are all more than welcome over there. I think we'll be kicking off a 0 to Hero on Twitch today and for Friday. Hit the thumbs up if you don't mind, it does the channel a big favour, and tick that notification bell if you'd like to be notified when my videos go live. Again, a huge thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.